Happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name's Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
Have you ever seen the movie Gone Girl? Well, if you haven't, it's about this woman who fakes her kidnapping and pins it on her husband. The reason for it? He was having an affair! In real life, a crime based loosely off of Gone Girl actually happened, and it went horribly wrong. So today, we will be talking about I almost said Panini. Sherri Papini.
So, Sherri Louise Graff, also known as Sherri Papini, was born on June 11, 1982. She has one sister, Sheila Coaster, and Sheila describes her and Sherri's childhood as being rough and traumatic. Parents, unfortunately, heavily abused alcohol and drugs, so this left Sheila, the oldest of the two, to be a parent to Sherri. And Jennifer Harrison, so this is Sherri's childhood friend, says Sherri often came to stay with her family to get away from it all. Jennifer once witnessed Loretta, which Loretta is Sherri's mom, and she witnessed her grabbing Sherri's hair one time and dragging her down the hall. And then around the age of 16, Sherri dropped out of high school and she ran away. And Sherri decided that she would move to LA, and then after that, she decided LA wasn't for her and she moved to the Bay Area during her late teens, early 20s. And she did date a man named James Reyes in LA. And James was described as being rough and abusive. Around 2007, Sherri meets Keith Papini, and Sheila describes Keith as being a sense of relief for her and Sherri. Sherri's and Keith's relationship was fire, and she said that he treated her like a princess. 2009, Sherri and Keith Papini got married. They had two kids. So they had a 4-year-old little boy named Tyler and a 2-year-old little girl named Violet. And that was the two kids she had at the time she went missing.
November 2nd, 2016. Man, this is almost 10 years old at this point. November 2nd, 2016, Keith leaves for work around 6:50 a.m. Sherri dropped the kids off at daycare and then went on a jog a mile from their home in Redding, California. Keith arrives home at work to an empty house, which meant no kids and no Sherri. Keith gets worried, so he uses the Find My Phone feature and traces her phone to their mailbox, which was a mile away, which is exactly where she jogged to. Keith then checks in with his mother, who hadn't spoken to Sherri at all that day. Keith, having a bad feeling, then calls the daycare, which then he discovers Sherri never came to pick up their kids. Keith then dialed 911 to open a missing persons case. Over the course of several days, over 100 volunteers helped search for Sherri, and family and friends launched a GoFundMe, raising close to $50,000 in donations towards finding Sherri. After days of no sight of her or any information, Keith reaches out to hostage negotiator Cameron Gamble. A $50,000 ransom was posted for Sherri's return, but of course, that got no traction. So after that didn't work, the offer was rescinded, and instead a higher offer was put out for anyone who had any information on her disappearance.
And I do want to note that the evidence that the police found were her wallet with about $100 left behind, her wedding ring was left behind, and her phone was not on her. Neighbors described the couple as constantly yelling and screaming at each other every day, and one neighbor heard Keith say that he was going to kill her. Jennifer Harrison, when speaking to the police, said that her and Sherri had dinner a month prior to her disappearance. And Sherri supposedly told her that if she tried to leave Keith, he claimed that he would kill her. Even said he would chop her up into little pieces and bury her in the backyard. Nicole McDonald, another friend, said that she had called her up one day and she was told that Keith had hit her. And the side of Sherri's face was clearly bruised, and when Keith spoke to detectives, he did say, yes, that they did have issues, but he said that they were just playing the Wii at a friend's house when he accidentally elbowed her in the eye. Keith also said shortly after they got married, he said that he had gotten a post-nuptial after Sherri confessed that she had been seeing another man, and she was seeing this other man while they were married.
While they were married.
And then Keith said that Sherri, who was working at AT&T, got laid off, and she decided she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She did have a severance package, and she still, even though she says she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, she insisted that her kids go to daycare anyways, and then decided to get her tits done. And Keith described her as being poor with handling money, and that she would get absolutely nothing at all if she left the relationship.
So it's very sus that she just disappeared all of a sudden because there's a lot of things going on here.
Yep.
Super weird. But Thanksgiving of 2016, Sherri is actually spotted by a motorist and she is walking on the side of a road in Yolo County, which is about 150 miles from Redding. Tom Bosenko, which is the Shasta County Sheriff, said that Sherri was able to walk to a church at 4:30 in the morning that day, and when nobody answered her, she walked back and flagged down a motorist near Interstate 5 and Yolo County Road 17. Sherri, when found by the motorist and then the police, had been beaten, had a chain around her waist, a zip tie on her wrist, and hose clamps around her ankles, which is very strange. But I guess that's one way to use hose clamps. Sherri then presented to the hospital with her face covered in bruises, the bridge of her nose broken, scabs on her arms and under her fingers, and her back had been branded. She only weighed 87 pounds and had her hair cut short, which was bizarre because it was very long before. Police did not get much information from Sherri at the time, except for that she had been held at gunpoint by two Hispanic women in a dark SUV. She also said that they continuously tortured her. Police at this time did not have any reasons not to believe her, as those who are abducted tend to have limited recollections of events, which is very true, especially with all the trauma that you go through. And there was also no motive given for the abduction, which was really strange. But police did offer a $10,000 reward for any information, and they also released the sketches of the kidnappers from what Sherri could give them description-wise.
So in October 2017, so this is about a year after her disappearance, authorities found both male and female DNA on Sherri's clothing. Neither of the DNA matched anyone in the database, and it did not match Keith at all. Investigators also revealed at this time that there was inconsistency between Sherri's so-called events and the evidence. Sherri had said that she cut her foot in an altercation with one of her captors. However, according to hospital records, she had no injury matching that description. And police discovered that Sherri had been in an online relationship with the man from Michigan. She said the man came to California around the time of her abduction, but he never went to reading, and he wasn't believed to be involved with her disappearance.
Yeah. It's a lot as far as weird shit. But finally, police, after being befuddled and flabbergasted as no evidence was coming back and all this other stuff, they had a breakthrough in the case around March 2020 when they matched the DNA on Sherri to a relative of one of her exes. And of course, could you guess that man was James Reyes, the abusive ex-boyfriend? August 2020, police actually questioned him, and his account of her kidnapping was so different than what she had told everybody. He said Sherri was never kidnapped, willingly consented, asked him all this other stuff, and said that she was hiding out with him in Costa Mesa, California, which is for 3 weeks, which is strange considering she claimed that he abused her. So why would she want him to be around? Why would she go with him? James said that he and Sherri had been communicating with prepaid cell phones this whole time, and Sherri also caused harm to herself to create the injuries, along with having him board up the windows, forcing him to brand her, and her losing weight by intentionally not eating. Sherri had told James she needed to escape her husband, but what for, though? Nobody knows. In 2003, coincidentally enough, Sherri's mother actually filed a report accusing Sherri of doing the exact same thing, along with burglary and unauthorized withdrawals from their accounts. After all this time of maintaining she was kidnapped, she wasn't, and of course her husband Keith found out and he was absolutely devastated and disgusted with who he married. Which I would be too.
Yeah, I'd be like, bye.
Bye. See you, girl.
And then March 3rd, 2022, so this is over 5 years after her kidnapping, Sherri was finally arrested while attending her children's piano lessons. So she was arrested for faking her kidnapping. She was charged with making false statements to a federal officer and for engaging in mail fraud. She received over $30,000 from the California's Victim Compensation Board for her fake account abduction. April 2022, Sherri pleaded guilty to all charges, stating that she was deeply ashamed, that she was sorry for the pain I've caused my family, friends, and all the good people who needlessly suffered because of my story. But this is very ironic, considering she even caused more harm to her family by making her kids have rubbing alcohol when they were sick to make them even more sick. In September 2022, Sherri was sentenced to 18 months in prison in order to pay back more than $300,000 in restitution. And Keith obviously divorced Sherri, and he also thankfully got full custody of his children. Sherri still does have monthly visitation rights, and Sherri has told sources that she is writing a book that she will get her time to tell her side of the story.
Which is funny because they actually are working on coming out with a documentary that she is telling the whole story. But, like, girl, who do you think wants to watch that after what you did?
Yeah, who do you
Nobody.
think you are?
Who do you think you are trying to, like, you just want your attention and your 15 minutes of fame, which you already had by faking your abduction. So,
Yeah,
good luck with that. But into the Reddit comments, which people surprisingly have a lot to say about this woman. Um,
I'm sure.
yeah. The first one is by pretty underscore recording 8990. Why did Sherri Papini fake her abduction? Illustrious underscore trade 962. Attention, narcissistic personality disorder, Munchausen syndrome, control. Pick as many as you want.
Specialist underscore spoon, borderline historic factitious disorder. This girl is walking like a DSM crisis.
Oh, man, that's hard hitting.
Yeah.
Uh, Big. How the fuck? Big Bizarre. She'd actually been meeting up with other men for years, so this time was similar, but once she got into this episode, she decided to stay gone a while because she thought she could get away with her fantasy of being the center of massive attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun Peach in the Sun. I haven't watched the whole Hulu doc yet, but I did say that she was willingly drinking Dasani water. Absolutely unhinged behavior. Case closed.
Damn.
Yeah, if you drink Dasani water, that is psychopathic behavior.
Yeah, that shit's nasty.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. M Crop 609. Sherri wanted to be the next Elizabeth Smart, whom she followed closely. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's sad because Elizabeth's smart. went through a lot of shit.
She went through so much shit. Who would want to fucking fake going through that?
Yeah. Like,
That's
nobody wants it.
not me. Not mentally sane.
Gumshoe stores. The FBI's theory is that it stemmed from her employer severance money starting to run out. She was using it to pay for daycare. Keith had told her that he wasn't going to keep paying for daycare after that money ran out when Sherri was home and not working. So she hatched the plan to be abducted, got some money out of it, and gained Keith's sympathy for her trauma so he wouldn't make her go back to work. She'd be able to stay home but keep sending kids to daycare like she wanted. Yeah.
What's the whole point of being a stay-at-home mom if you're gonna send your kids to daycare?
Right.
DCO 18. My take. She lost her job. Keith had a prenup in place. She felt trapped with no money. She bolted and hoped Keith would appreciate her and lighten up due to her being injured.
So this is by Red of the Evil Dead, Keith Papini. And then Mr. Guest 6969. The part that really shocked to me is when they got in an argument and she said something like, I have to live with the fact that you didn't find me. What an evil person she is to lay that guilt on him.
But girl, you was sleeping with somebody else
Yeah,
the whole
that's
time. You weren't abducted, nothing. You did all this for what? And then you're gonna
you
get this
fake
man?
ass.
Like, you the dirtiest bitch ever. What you mean?
Yes.
Hell no. Black fur, white sugar. My post about this was removed, but did anyone else think it was weird that the truck driver that called 911 when she was found said she escaped from her boyfriend and then she started screaming no in the background? That's weird. That's weird. Doesn't make sense.
And then Dragon Rider 1965. I'm really glad both him and the children have gotten from under her control. I'm actually concerned for the children of her boyfriend. Who in their right mind willingly puts their children around someone as crazy as her and who hurts their own kids? Yeah.
You take a big risk there, buddy. No thanks. Oh. This one's a good one. The Immortal Fawn. My interpretation of Keith is that he always sort of knew. You can tell in her police interviews where he's rubbing his face at some of the things she says because they're so puffed up in her favor, which is how she always tells her lies. The only thing that keeps me from thinking he was in on it, and it's why I think he came back inconclusive on the lie detector test. He always knew, he just had no proof. Well, he did say, like, everybody that knew her said she was, like, dramatic with both things out of proportion. She would lie. So, like, yeah, you can think you know, but if you don't have hardcore proof, you can't just go out there and, like, accuse somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
True.
he kind of had to trust his wife and go with what she said. And in the end, he kind of got fucked.
And the professional saved 260. It was heartbreaking watching the documentary, seeing him hear what she did to their children. Her son crying, traumatized when she ate something for the first time again. I wonder why he stayed, but after learning more about it, he just responded how I think a lot of people would in the moment. When it's not your life personally, it's easier to say how obvious or he knew it was happening. His brain was telling them this isn't adding up, it wasn't logical, but his heart said maybe I'm overthinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And people can be manipulated too.
Yeah, so many people are so good at like manipulating others. It's like you can't tell. They're so good at
Yeah.
it. They're so like such narcissism, such gaslighting. They're great at it. Like they're professionals at it.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Misty Reed. People forget that men can be victims of abuse. Additionally, just like men stay in these situations to protect their children, even more than a lot of women, since in many places the courts still heavily favor the mom.
Yep.
Yeah.
They do.
Yep, they do. A lot of states, a lot of courts favor moms. And into the last Reddit comment section by confident underscore attitude. I just listened to the Sherri Papini case. Looks like she did more than just disappear. And she did, bro. Let's see. Oh, Mommy Low 5. Dude, watch the show on Hulu. She was purposely making her kids sick so she could take them to the doctor all the time. There's a lot that was not initially released from the case till now. I feel bad for her husband and those poor kids. I do as well. It's awful.
The moniker, she's a monster. I hope the feds charge her with child abuse. She gets locked up again. I hope if she's convicted, child abuse, horrible things happen while she's incarcerated. Her kids would be much better off.
Yeah, supposedly she still hasn't even paid the $300,000 she owes. So it's liable. She could end up back in jail again.
Yep, I could see that.
Because she owes the federal government all this money because she wasted their resources.
Yep. And other people could have used those resources a lot more.
Yeah, there's people who are actually missing or dead that don't have their cases solved that you literally wasted government money for. Like what? Clone 162. My mom would have me smelling rubbing alcohol to relieve nausea. Is this different? I'm assuming so. I've never even heard that before.
Jack and Sally, what they says, I thought that at first too, but when I do, it's a little wet wipe or cotton ball. She's hanging bags of alcohol around their neck.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
That's over. That's over.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Wow.
Do you? This chick is one odd character.
Not this comment though. Reddit 8. Sherri Papini was always going to do something horrendous. She reminds me of Dee Dee Blanchard.
Yep.
My thoughts exactly, but that whole separate thing about that's a different. Yeah. I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
That whole not
it's complicated.
It's complicated. We'll go over it eventually, maybe. You know, it's a lot. You can watch Perfect Wife, The Mysterious Disappearance of Sherri Papini on Hulu. Should be the only thing you watch. Don't watch the documentary that's about to come out that has her side of the story. Please, guys. Never pull a Gone Girl either. Especially not like this. This is fucked up. No matter how mentally ill you are, please don't ever do this. If you do, shame on you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More. Tune in next time for another exciting case. Be on the lookout next week for something grand. It might even steal your attention. Also, watch when you cross the road. Wouldn't want to get hit by a car.